Final thoughts on Bills versus Bengals, an injury update from Dr. Kyle Trimble of Banged Up Bills, and 5 game predictions for Sunday are all coming your way today on Locked On Bills.
You are Locked On Bills, your daily Buffalo Bills podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Bills Mafia? It's Joe Marino from the Draft Network, and I'm your host of Locked On Bills. Happy Friday to you, and thank you for making Locked On Bills your first listen every day. And as a reminder to you, we are free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. Today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. Well, folks, this is our typical Friday conversation. I'll give you my final thoughts on the game and a couple other things that I want to mention here in the opening segment. Then we'll talk to Dr. Kyle Trimble of Banged Up Bills, and we'll close it out with 5 predictions for Sunday. Let's start with my final thoughts on Bills versus Bengals. And I feel like I've talked so much about these teams, whether it was this week or in the lead up to the Monday night game. We've said it all. And I think what it comes down to, if you just really just boil it down to the basics of this football game, the Bengals are hoping they can make it work with 3 backup offensive linemen and that they can protect Joe Burrow. They've been there before. They've been undermanned at offensive line literally for an entire season last year, and it got worse as the season moved along. Joe Burrow got pressured a ton in those playoffs. They got to the Super Bowl and damn near won the whole thing. So they're probably saying to themselves, we've been here before, guys. We can do this. Now, there's consequences, right? It's all got to come together. It certainly doesn't help their rushing offense that has already been lacking, right? The production hasn't been there all season when it comes to running the football, especially of late. And that's their mindset, right? They probably feel good about their chances on defense with Lou Anarumo and the talent that they have. They feel good about Joe Burrow and the weapons that he has. It's about that offensive line. How much of a stumbling block will it be on Sunday afternoon? From the Bills' perspective, they're hoping they can go out there and take care of the football, not turn it over, and take advantage of the Bengals' makeshift offensive line. Right? That's the big talking point with the Bills. Will they take care of the football? Because they were able to get through the Dolphins and they were able to get through the Patriots with some turnover issues. But we're talking about one of the premier teams in the league here in the Cincinnati Bengals. Well, the Bills are one of the premier teams in the league too. And they've been here before, right? So just like we've talked about with the Bengals and their offensive line and how they've still been able to win a lot of football games and go pretty far. Well, here the Bills are turning over the ball like they do, 1 win away from being in the AFC Championship game. Now, obviously, they could probably help themselves. They could make it a little easier by not turning over the football. But that's what it comes down to. The Bills right now are thinking, can we take care of the football, still score points, and take advantage of this Bengals makeshift offensive line? I mean, I think that's what it comes down to. That's it. Now, there's a whole lot else, right? There's other dynamics and variables, but as we close the week here on the podcast, that's the prevailing thought entering Sunday from both sides of the equation. Folks, I announced this week on Twitter that I wrote another book that you can pre-order right now. It comes out in mid-February, and it is a book that covers the 2022 Buffalo Bills. I wrote about this entire season, the story, right? The offseason, the lead up into the season with all the expectations. There's a chapter on every week of the season, and obviously throughout the playoffs. Hopefully I have 3 more chapters to write, right? This week against the Bengals, next week in the AFC Championship game, and the Super Bowl, right? That's my hope. I got 3 more chapters to write. I got at least 1 more. And when the season concludes, it'll ship. And so I'm very excited about it. Obviously, I released my first book in 2022, Go Bills, which was the entire history of the Buffalo Bills, 1960 through 2021, right? Last year's team. And was really successful, had a lot of great feedback. And so got another opportunity with the publisher to write a story on this season. And so I hope that you'll consider purchasing it. It was really fun to write and really go week by week and, kind of chronicle all my thoughts and all the big storylines. And it's been a storybook season, right? All the adversity, all the resiliency that this team has shown to be at this point. It's a really good story to tell, and it's not done being written. Hopefully there's a whole lot more to say. But regardless of how it ends, this book will be available for you to relive and reflect upon one of the most interesting seasons in the history of the franchise. So that's available for you right now. BuffaloBillsBook.com is where you can purchase it. It's also on my Twitter at the Joe Marino in a pinned tweet. You can go right to the link, and I'll also put a link in the show notes for today's podcast. So would love your consideration. $14.95. Right now it's called Buffalo's Run. Obviously if the Bills win the Super Bowl, we might change the title, but the meat and potatoes of the book is me writing a chapter on every week of the season, the off season, and obviously just the overall story of this team. So would love your consideration. And it's been really fun becoming an author here. I know I've written a lot of articles, thousands of articles throughout my life, but the book side of things is a new challenge that I've really enjoyed, and excited to announce the second one that I've written. The last thing I want to mention here in this opening segment, and I probably should have done this a couple weeks ago, and I like to do this every year, is acknowledge that we are now I've now been hosting this podcast for 4 years. I became the host of this podcast on January 8th, 2019. That's when we dropped my first ever episode of Locked On Bills. And this is 4 whole years. This is entering year 5. This is the 1,042nd episode of this podcast that I have hosted, which is a huge number. I think a very small percentage of podcasts get this far, right? And so I'm very, very honored to be here. I'm very thankful for you listening to this podcast. I've said it many times on this show, but Locked On Bills has changed my life. It absolutely has in so many ways. And I'm so grateful. It's been a great year. The podcast continues to have significant year-over-year growth. There's really no indication that that's slowing down anytime soon, and I'm just completely blown away. The entire year, we've been ranked in the top 50 football podcasts in America. Lately, we've been around the top 25. I think we got as high as 18 that I've seen. There's been times where we were the number 1 team-specific podcast when it comes to football, right? There's a lot of football podcasts that cover the entire league, but we cover the Bills, that small market team from Western New York, and we're in the top 20 of football podcasts in America. So I'm just so thankful, so grateful. We launched the YouTube channel this year. I believe that happened back in March. When I say this year, I mean last year, 2022. That's been humming along very nicely. I'm really amazed at how quickly that has grown. Very thankful. And so I can't wait to just keep doing the podcast. I'll obviously continuously reflecting what we do, how we do it, how we deliver it. I'll keep trying to improve and keep doing my best to make sure you pushing play on this podcast is worth your time. And I know we put out 5 podcasts a week. There's a lot of opportunity to consume this content, and I'll just keep doing the best I can to make it worth your time. And I'm having fun. Still having a lot of fun. I couldn't imagine this not being a part of what I do every single day. You guys motivate me. I'm so thankful for all the interaction that I have, all the emails, all the direct messages. The relationships that I've formed through this podcast, they mean everything to me. And I know how many people count on me on a daily basis to deliver this podcast and include it into your daily routine. And I'll keep doing my very best to make sure that I'm consistent. And like I said, that it's worth your time. So it's been a great 4 years. Very excited for year number 5. The Bills have made the playoffs every year that I've been the host of this podcast, right? So we've I guess I came in at the right time. I would say for sure. It's a really fun team to talk about with Sean McDermott and Josh Allen. And, you know, I've often said I don't know how this would have went if I did this during the Rex Ryan years or anything prior to that. But I came at the right time. I think timing is everything in a lot of ways. And I'm glad to be here, and I'm glad to keep doing this podcast, hopefully for a really, really, really long time. As a small business owner or hiring manager, you know that success in 2023 all depends on the team members you surround yourself with. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. With LinkedIn Jobs, you can hire qualified candidates more efficiently by matching open roles with people who have the skills, values, and experiences to help you achieve your goals. LinkedIn Jobs helps you quickly attract qualified candidates to your open jobs with targeting tools. They go beyond resume data by using insight from your job post, company, and their 875 million member profiles to put your post in front of the most qualified candidates. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. I'm joined now by Kyle Trimble. He's a doctor of physical therapy. He runs bangedupbills.com. You can follow him on Twitter at bangedupbills. He gets us ready for each game from an injury perspective. And we got a few things to dig into here today, Kyle. And I want to start with the Bills' defensive tackles. Obviously, Jordan Phillips missed last week with his shoulder. We talked about that and the labrum and all that stuff last week. And it seems like maybe he's trending in a good direction. But also a new name here, Daquan Jones, calf injury, limited Wednesday and Thursday. What can you tell us about these two defensive tackles?
I feel like the Jordan Phillips thing, we've beaten it to death. We talked about that a lot last week. Divisional round of the playoffs, I would be hard-pressed for him to think that he's not going to try playing this weekend, even if they leave him questionable for the game. I'm sure he's been working on a lot of shoulder stabilization exercises, anything just to give his shoulder as much stability as possible so he doesn't have that dead arm look when he's trying to block during the game. But I expect him a little bit, and I also expect him to play because we know that Daquan Jones is dealing with a calf injury. So I'm sure they're going to split up some of the reps to try to keep those guys fresh and whatnot. Regarding the Daquan Jones injury, we know it's a calf. I went back and looked at the film. There wasn't anything obvious on film. It wasn't like he went down and, holding his leg or anything like that. So that suggests it's a pretty minor strain. Now, when I say a minor strain, it's still an injury, but it's something he could probably play through in the playoffs. They're probably just going to try to limit his reps so he doesn't get overtired and then hurt it worse there. So I fully expect him to play too, despite the limited designations Wednesday and Thursday. I wouldn't be surprised if he does Friday as well, limited, but it's all about rest and try to get these guys ready today to play at their best.
Let's talk about Dane Jackson, Bills cornerback, knee injury, left the Dolphins game. We were told by Sean McDermott after the game that he could have returned if necessary. Obviously, Kyrie Elam said, we're good, I'll handle this. And then, of course, Isaiah McKenzie, the Bills slot receiver who missed last week with a hamstring injury. Both of these guys have practiced in full all week, but I just want to at least, hey, is there anything we need to know about these two guys?
McKenzie's looking good. He said he hurt last week in practice on Wednesday, and he said he was close, I believe, to playing last week, but they held him out, which was a smart play, knowing that you got three different guys to play with Shakir, Beasley, and McKenzie. And then, if they want to bring in Crowder, who I think they need to make a roster decision if they want to do that, like we talked about last week. It's nice to have options like that, though, especially at three guys at that position. And then as for Dane Jackson, I don't know what happened to him. They said it was a knee. It looked like they were working on his right knee when he was coming off the sideline. This was the play that Tremaine Edmonds rocked Savion Ahmed on the other side of the sideline. So the camera panned away. We couldn't see what happened. And then when he even went to the All-22, the camera panned away and focused on that play with Tremaine Edmonds. So you don't get a view on what happened, but it's good knowing that it was minor that he could have returned, but no questions for them heading into the game this weekend.
I want to ask you about Micah Hyde. And this is an interesting situation, obviously, where it feels like an absolute roller coaster from he's out for the year to somewhere in midseason. There was some speculation that he could return for the playoffs. We get to the playoffs. They designate him to return, 21-day window activated. Sean McDermott immediately says he's not playing against the Dolphins. And we're thinking, okay, we're good. We can handle the Dolphins without Micah Hyde. It'd be awesome if we have him back for the Bengals game. Well, Sean McDermott said he's not playing against the Bengals, while he also baked in a comment over the last week where it's, look, Mike has got to tap me on the shoulder and say he's ready to go. And so, I don't know, my brain is spinning on this situation. I think probably because I really would love the idea of Micah Hyde playing against the Bengals. And certainly if the Bills advance, whether it's the Jaguars or the Chiefs, you'd love to have him, right? He's going to make your football team better in a significant way. But what's going on here? I mean, I guess in my non-medical expertise, I don't really know what the difference a week would make. And so we're going to see Micah. I know you probably can't answer that with certainty, but what can you take away from all these different variables surrounding the Micah Hyde situation?
It was confusing me too, because I didn't feel that the Bills had any benefit to revealing the information. Keep your opponent, whoever it might have been at the time when he said that, in the dark as to whether he might play or not. The only thing I could think of is he's trying to protect Micah from himself. But with Travis White, where they were protecting him in a sense in front of the media, saying, "Hey, we're supporting him. He's coming back, and he's working his way through." So I don't know if this is McDermott's way of saying, "Hey, we want you back, but we're not going to rush you back or give you put that pressure on you to return as quickly as possible." So that's going to open up that full window for him to get back from a cardiovascular standpoint. From what I've seen, he's still in a red non-contact jersey, so he hasn't even been initiating hits. I don't know if that's due to doctor's orders or if it comes down to, hey, let me get my feet underneath me a little bit more before I start trying to hit guys. If he's not hitting guys right now, I wouldn't expect him to play. I like it to like this analogy I kind of came up with there. So, when somebody pours a new driveway, you let it set a little bit, start walking on it, do whatever, but you're not gonna be able to pull your car on it right away. You still have to let it set a little bit more. So I'm thinking maybe they take the same approach with this in a sense, like, he's healed up. He said that in conference that he's healed up to a certain extent. It just be okay. You can start doing some stuff with it from a football aspect, but you're still not quite ready to hit. And that's that concrete setting in terms of having a car on it. So hopefully he can start hitting next week, as long as we make it to the championship round. But it's been confusing from PT's perspective. A week at this point shouldn't make a difference, even though the whole time. But if you're this close to playing, you're splitting hairs at that point, in my opinion. But I don't have the images in front of me. I'm not the one that did surgery. So at the end of the day, Dr. Watkins, who surgery, is making decisions. If he says, let's hold him out and let's give him more time to ramp up, then so be it.
Yeah, look, I think the last thing anybody wants is for Micah Hyde to play sooner than he's ready to, right? I mean, a neck injury, this is serious. Nobody's wanting him to play sooner than he should. It's just, I think when there's a level of confusion that comes, as you admitted as well, that it's like, man, like, okay, what's going on here? So appreciate you sharing your thoughts on that. Do want to sneak in a Bengals question here before we wrap. They've got a couple players of consequence, two offensive linemen. We know that Lyle Collins, the right tackle, he's not available, torn ACL, but Jonah Williams dislocated kneecap in their last game. I don't think that sounds like something you could return and play from in a week, but I'll defer to your expertise. And then, of course, Alex Kappa, I believe it was a week 18 ankle injury. He hasn't practiced all week. I'm very curious as to your thoughts on his availability for Sunday.
So we'll hit the Jonah Williams first. It's worth noting that he actually did suffer the same injury on his other knee in week 5, and he's able to come back and play the next week with a brace on and whatnot. And as far as I know, he's been playing with that brace ever since then. But if you go back and look at the Sunday injury where he injured his left knee, he's getting backed up and his knees start kind of pivoting inward, and you get that valgus force through the knee. And thankfully, there's more knee bend through there. But what was really interesting to watch, and I want you to go back and look at this on Twitter, his foot gets really stuck in the turf there. And you could just see that weight shift. And that's where that force, that valgus force, really pops that kneecap out. I've done this when I played soccer my freshman year of high school. It's not a fun feeling. It's It's odd. It hurts. It's just nothing about it's fun. So for the Bills' perspective, it's good that he's not going to be able to play because he hasn't been able to practice, Wednesday or Thursday, still limping around. But it depends on how much damage happened in there, whether there's a ligament damage that supports the kneecap or whatnot there. But they didn't tell us, which doesn't surprise me, but it'd be really hard to try to pivot and especially try to move big bodies back and forth on the line like that. And keep in mind with that foot being planted like that, they also have that slit film turf, the same turf that injured Tre'Davious White, that injured Von Miller, that's injured countless other NFL players over the years because that foot gets sticky in the turf there. So that's the type of turf that they want to get rid of. So you'll see the foot really hit whenever you go look at that on Twitter. It's not a gruesome injury, though. As for Alex Kappa, he suffered a high ankle sprain by video, what it looks like there. And I wouldn't expect him to play. The beat reporters were saying that too, but he's still on a scooter. Like, those little knee scooters that you see driving around, they look fun. They're not fun to drive around. That's from a professional experience. If he's still on a scooter and able to walk normal distances and put weight through that ankle, there's no way he can play on Sunday. And I question if the Bengals were to make it onto the game, whether he'd even be effective or play even then.
Well, yeah, it looks like the Bengals are going to be down 3 offensive linemen. The Bills got to take advantage of that, though. So that's the big thing. Kyle, let's do this again next week and get ready for
Absolutely.
an AFC championship game. All right, my guy.
Let's do this for another few weeks here. Let's face it,
at least 2 more times.
Yes.
That would be perfect. That'd be exactly what the doctor orders. So write the prescription, Kyle. Appreciate you coming on here, my guy.
All right, thank you. Go Bills.
Looking for a delicious treat but don't want all the fat and calories? Then you got to try Built Bars. We just got through the holidays. Everyone's goal is to eat a little healthier. And if you want to do that but have something delicious, you got to try Built Bars. These things are the best tasting protein bars on the planet. What makes them so good? Well, for starters, they're covered in 100% real chocolate. That's right, real chocolate. They have great flavors. They've got the Built Bars. They've got Built Puffs, which are my favorite. The granola. So many great options, and they're super healthy for you. Only 130 calories and 4 grams of sugar with a whopping 17 grams of protein. And, of course, you can go to Built.com and order these things, but now they're available at Walmart and Sam's Club. So if you are nearby a Sam's Club or Walmart, you can head on in and pick up a box today, or, of course, visit Built.com for the best tasting protein bars on the planet. All right, folks, it is prediction time. I got 5 of them for you. I know sometimes twice this year I didn't do predictions, and y'all let me know you didn't like that. So I've got 5 of them for you. Let's get into them. Number 1, and this is a carryover prediction from the last time I predicted Bills and Bengals. This is the only carryover prediction. I'm predicting 600 passing yards combined for both quarterbacks. Joe Burrow and Josh Allen will combine for 600 passing yards. I'm not predicting they both have 300 passing yards, but I think the total will top 600. Maybe one has 325, maybe one has 276. That gets us to 301. That's what we're looking for. But for as much as we talk about the run game that the Bengals don't have and the run game that the Bills do have and that they're the two-dimensional team and all that, this game's going to come down to Allen and Burrow. And I think that's exactly what both teams want. And so I'm expecting a lot of throwing. I mean, you could see 40-plus passing attempts from both quarterbacks. That might have been another good prediction. But at the end of the day, we're going to see them throw the football, and I'm predicting at least 600 combined passing yards from both quarterbacks. Number 2, and this is something I mentioned at the end of yesterday's crossover discussion with James Rapine. I think the over hits in this game. Right now, courtesy of Bet Online, the over-under is set at 49, which is up a point from yesterday, which was 48. I think there's going to be some points in this game. And right now, for us to get to 50 points, you're basically looking at both teams being in the mid-20s, around 25 points. Well, I think both teams are going to be higher than 25 points. I think one will push for 28, 29, 30. One will be in the low 30s. And that gets us to the over. So I think, unless I'm just missing something obvious, and maybe it's that there could be some turnovers, that the Bengals defense is really good, the Bills defense is really good. I mean, all that stuff is true, but I think there's only so much that's going to keep these quarterbacks from getting in the end zone. I think a 33 to 28, 31 to 28 type score is what I'm expecting at least. You're talking about 49 points. You're thinking a 28 to 24, something like that. So I think we get the over here. Number 3, here's an aggressive one for you. I don't think the Bills lose the turnover battle. Now, I didn't predict that they would win the turnover battle, but I don't think they lose it. I'm not predicting that the Bills don't turn over the football, but I don't think they lose the turnover battle. I think the Bengals can turn it over too. They're not like a mistake-free team. A lot at stake. Going to need to make some throws here, both teams probably. But I don't think the Bills lose the turnover battle. I like the messaging from Sean McDermott this week, who's been asked about this a lot. And he's said, look, I trust that our players will get this taken care of. And he talked about, we got to stop shooting ourselves in the foot. So there's obviously an acknowledgement here. And typically when that happens, the Bills are able to get it right. Now, the question is, do they get it right while maintaining an aggressive level of football that still plays to their strengths offensively? That's something I am obviously thinking a lot about, but I don't think the Bills are going to go out there and just be reckless with the football and turn it over 4 times. I think the turnovers in this game will be even, and I think there's a good chance that both teams turn it over maybe once or twice. I don't think this is going to be a big turnover game from either team. So I have it as the Bills not losing the turnover battle. So either they win it or it's even. Number 4, I don't know if I've ever predicted this before, but I'm going to do it right now. I predict a touchdown from Gabriel Davis. Gabe in the playoffs just catches touchdown passes, right? I think that'll continue. And I think what that really comes down to is, obviously Gabe can catch touchdown passes. He's been prolific in that area throughout his career, and he's got a quarterback that knows how to throw touchdown passes. But you think about the attention that Steph Diggs commands, especially in the playoffs, right? I think when you get to this point in the season, teams make choices and they say, if we lose, it ain't going to be because of this guy, right? And I think that teams may look at Diggs and say, look, maybe we won't beat the Bills, but we're not going to go down because Steph Diggs just roasts us all day long. And I think that opens up opportunities for Gabe. And I think that's why Gabe and Dawson Knox have been very prolific touchdown scorers in the playoffs. If you remember that Patriots game last year, the perfect game, 7 touchdowns or whatever it was, Diggs didn't score any of them, right? It was Davis, Sanders, Tommy Doyle, Knox a couple of times, Singletary a couple of times. Look at the divisional round game against the Chiefs. Gabe Davis has 4 receiving touchdowns. I don't think Diggs had one at all. And so I think the playoffs just create a really good environment for Gabe to be on the receiving end of Josh Allen touchdown passes. So I think Gabe gets in the end zone again here against the Bengals. Maybe Dawson Knox too. If you said I had to pick, if you told me Josh Allen throws at least 3 touchdowns on Sunday and I had to pick 2 players that I thought would be locks to get the touchdowns, Gabe Davis 1, Dawson Knox 2. But I think Gabe Davis is good for 1 on Sunday. And then lastly, as I predicted yesterday, I do think the Bills win the game. It's going to be tough. It's going to be a dogfight. There's going to be some big moments. I think this is going to be one of those games that you look back on and you're going to remember stuff about it. I mean, obviously the magnitude of the game lends itself to that, but what do you think about, go back to the Colts game from a couple years ago? What really stands out to you? I don't think this is going to be a forgettable game. There's going to be some big moments. And obviously, I think there's a very clear path for the Bengals to win this game. But I like the Bills at home. What are they, 13-1 since 1970 at home in the playoffs? You still want that dome? McDermott 4-0 in the playoffs at home. Coincidentally, 0-3 on the road. Bills at home in the playoffs is a big deal. They got some real opportunities here in this game. Josh Allen's hungry. I know Joe Burrow is too. Not taking anything away from Joe Burrow. He's awesome. But I just kind of get this sense. I don't know. Allen, I just don't think he's going to be denied. And I think the Bills will benefit from having a couple of series against the Bengals on that Monday night game. I think leaning into Kyer Elam's going to help them. I think the potential of being two-dimensional on offense. There's a lot here working for them. Again, obviously, a lot of respect for the Bengals and their chance to win the game, but I'm certainly not going to sit in front of you today and predict the Bills season ends like this. So put me down for a Bills win, and we get to talk about an AFC Championship game next week on the podcast. Well, folks, the hay's in the barn. We've done all we can. Did all we can here on this podcast to get ready for the game. All that's left is for the Bills to go out and do it. Remember, it's not how you do it. It just matters that you do it. So excited to watch this one. Enjoy it. Remember, we talked about that this week. Leave room to enjoy, right? I know it's tense. It's stressful. We want it bad, right? You feel like you got a team that can go do it. You wonder how long that'll be the case. There's some anxiousness about it. Leave room to enjoy it. This is really fun. The Bills are in the final 8 teams in the league for the 3rd straight year, right? Have fun. The Bills are playing playoff football, and everybody wants to watch it, right? We're living in the good days of being a Bills fan, so leave room to enjoy it through all the nerves and anxiousness that we're all feeling. All right, folks, go Bills. Have a great weekend, and I look forward to catching up with you after the game.